morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out. I want to start today with some announcements. So if you come in later, you're going to want to come back. But if you come in late, you won't hear me say that. Oh, well, I'll make another announcement at the end, right? So I have two announcements. One is 31 days in Psalm 31, which has been translated to Urdu for some time, just made it to the printers yesterday. So it is 500 copies, yeah, 500 copies of 31 Days in Psalm 31 will be ready to distribute to Christians in Pakistan in the next couple of weeks. So I'm so excited that this one's finally there. The next one will publish. It's already been translated into Urdu. We just haven't. Look. I'm paying as it comes in. I'm paying a little piece at a time to get the printing paid for. It's really super cheap, but when you're talking 500 books for a buck a book, you're talking about $500. But anyway, it has been translated a long time and is now at the printers and will be ready here pretty soon to be distributed. The next one, Peace Out, I didn't bring that one over here, has already been translated into Urdu, and it'll have to wait. We got to do this one first, and then that'll be another 500 bucks or so to print those out. It's only about $1 a book, which is really cheap, right? But anyway, but we just do it as it comes, and don't do it if it don't. That's just the way we play in the game right now. The other announcement I have is a new book that I solidified in my mind today. I've already started on it actually, and it's going to have to do with today's topic. But before I do that, I do have I'll drop everything this morning. I do have Command Your Mornings, which is a devotional just about how to take charge in your morning. It gives you a scripture to just really take charge of for the day and say, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to trust God today. We're going to follow God today. I'm going to do this today. I'm going to, it gives something to meditate on, something to declare, and an action for each and every day. So that devotional is in the works and will be published in November, although I'm just a bit behind right this minute. But we'll get it there. And then the next one I have has to do with today's lesson. It's going to be called When Every Day's a Giant. And here's why. Here's today's lesson. Surprise! It'll be my next devotional after I finish Command Your Morning. Okay. But anyway, it's going to be for those who just face stuff, who are just in a tough spot, right? And so, because I was actually reading Psalm 27 this morning. And David starts out by this. He says, the Lord is my light and my salvation. I love that he always encourages himself. He reminds himself, right? The Lord is my light and my salvation. Why would I be afraid? So he must have been scared to have even thought to say that. Why am I scared? Because God has got me, but I'm still scared. And that's not necessarily a sin. Let that fear drive us, and that being scared drive us back to him and remind ourselves that he is our light. He is our salvation. He is our fortress. He is our rock. And this is something David does so much in the Psalms. And he says this, the Lord protects me from danger. Why should I tremble? I'm like, was he trembling? Was he like trying to drink his coffee? Did he have coffee? Oh, I don't know. That would be a horrible thing. Trying to drink your coffee in the morning and you're shaking because so many things are going on in your life. You're not sure how you're going to face the day. And maybe you're not shaking physically, but your brain is and your emotions are. Maybe we're sitting here going, I don't know, I'm going to do this. I don't know, I'm going to do that. I don't know. Why am I going to do that? Because I'm going to remind myself that the Lord will take care of me, right? And he goes on and he talks about an army surrounding me. If they attack me, I'm still confident. Why? Because I have asked of the Lord that I can be with him. He goes on down, he says, I will hold my head high above my enemies who surround me. He's like, I'm coming back to you, God, even though he felt surrounded. And so I started saying, but this is David, David and Goliath, David, that even the world knows the story of David and Goliath, right? Even people who don't even think the Bible is true use that analogy in so many circumstances. They even say it, sometimes I hear it even on football games, right? When one team is they're so low down here and they're not a nothing team and they're coming up against maybe a ranked team in the top 5 or the top 25 or ranked at all, and they're not, and they call that a David and Goliath. The world knows about David and Goliath. This is David saying, why am I trembling? God's got me. I'm like, dude, you took out the giant, but one giant wasn't enough. David had a lot of other giants. So I started thinking about it. I was like, David went through so many different things. He took out Goliath. As a matter of fact, when he killed Goliath, that's what and people started going, ooh, Saul killed his thousands, but David killed his 10,000s, which wasn't even true. But because Saul was so weak in his heart and his probably his mind and his emotions, and he was so insecure, it made him jealous, and he began to chase David. He tried to kill David. David spent, and I don't know when he wrote Psalm 27, but he might have been running from Saul at that time. He was hiding when he wrote Psalm 31. He was hiding in a cave from Saul, who was chasing him, trying to kill him. I'm like, well, that's a kind of a giant thing to face. So one giant wasn't enough. And then we know, I thought of this too, that David also, he had a big battle with Absalom later in his life. Absalom, and then finally somebody killed Absalom, and he had to process the death of his son, the son who was betraying him and trying to take the throne by killing him. That's some stuff. That's some giants, right? But then there was one giant he didn't beat, and that was with Bathsheba. He faced a giant there, but that giant of adultery, that giant of seduction, that giant of lust took him down just for a little bit. He come running back to God. That's the main thing. Even when a giant takes you down, just come running back to God. That's the coolest thing. That's why God said David is a man after my own heart. Because even when he messes up, he comes running right back. He just keeps running back, keeps coming running back. And that's the cool thing about David. But he didn't just face one giant. Sometimes it feels like life is one battle after another. And maybe we take this one out. Maybe we face this and we go, man, this is a big circumstance and a big thing. God, I'm going to trust you to get me through it. And you get through it. And you're like, man, whew, that was close. But then you got 10 other ones that you've got to go through at the same time. Sometimes right after that, one right after another. Sometimes you're going through several things simultaneously. And the thing about life is there may be some really good stuff going on and some really bad stuff going on all at the same time. One giant wasn't enough. There's going to be giants. There's going to be struggles. There's going to be trials. That's what I love about the word is every time David came back and said, my heart is yours, God. Even when he messed up and the giant took him down, the giant of whatever Bathsheba was, right? Let's think about that because God even redeemed that. How? I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so David took Bathsheba. He saw her, he wanted her, he was the king, he could have whatever he wanted, so he took what he wanted, but she was somebody else's wife. And God said, no, not on my watch. You're my king. You can't do that. And so, to add to that, let's add this in there too. He murdered on purpose. He put Uriah at the very front. He sent a message to, he actually had Uriah take the message to the commander, which tells you how much integrity Uriah had. He didn't even read it. He just did what the king said and took the message to his commander, and it was the message to put him on the front line so he'd be killed. And then David thought he wouldn't be guilty. But now not only is he not guilty of taking Bathsheba, taking another man's wife, he's also guilty of murder. That's two for one, right? And then because he found out Bathsheba was pregnant, right? Right, you go read the story. It's a really cool story. There's a whole lot of details. I'm leaving out, right? And so the baby that he got her pregnant. She had a baby, and the baby died. So there's a whole lot of giants going on. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. And when we let one giant take us out, there's probably four more coming after. That's why he probably took 4 extra stones. That's why he took 5 stones out to Goliath, because Goliath had 4 brothers. And when you let one giant have you, like he did with Bathsheba, you're going to take on 4 brothers because you was welcome to the whole world. But God, that is not beyond God, because you know what happened? Uriah goes back to the battle. The commander puts him at the front. He dies. He takes Bathsheba as his wife. The baby died, okay? And then after that, she gets pregnant again, and she gives birth to, do y'all know? Solomon. The Solomon that wrote Proverbs. The Solomon that God said, do you want wisdom or do you want riches? And he went, Now wisdom tells me that with wisdom comes riches and honor. So if I take wisdom, it's kind of like God said, you want what's behind door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3? And Solomon said, I'll take the key. And he opened all of the doors because he got everything with wisdom, right? That's Solomon. After David messed up, after he committed adultery, after he had Uriah killed, God redeemed the situation and gave us a Solomon that actually wrote part of the Bible and was used to build the temple. God can redeem anything. He can redeem our biggest mess ups. He can redeem our biggest letdowns. He can redeem any situation. There are no, let's say it grammatically correct here. There are no situations that God can't bring redemption from, right? We can't mess things up so bad God can't do something with it. He never sits back and says, what am I going to do with that? I have no idea. You messed up something bigger than God could handle? Think about that. You can't mess up something too big for God to handle. He can redeem any situation. It's all about bringing your heart back to Him. And that's what David did so beautifully. Maybe I've heard the phrase beautifully broken. David was beautifully broken when he messed stuff up. He came right back to God going, I messed everything up, but I still want to know you. I still want to talk to you. Please forgive me. Cleanse me from these sins. He even prayed things like, cleanse me from the sins I don't even know about. How cool is that? How cool is that? And you know what? God met him there every single time. Every time David messed up, he ran back to God. God met him there. That did not mean that some of his choices didn't have consequences. But God is big enough to clean up consequences. He's big enough to clean up messes. He's big enough to walk through our day-to-day lives with us. No matter how many giants we're facing, He will be there with us. And that's why David could declare in this one that he says, my heart has heard you say, come and talk with me. And my heart responds, Lord, I'm coming. That was a grabber right there, right? That's after he says, why am I afraid? Why am I scared? But in the middle of his fear, in the middle of his craziness that he had going on, he's like, I'm still hearing God say, come. God is not going to throw anybody away. God is always on. Come on, come on, let's talk. Come on, I'll fix it. I'll redeem the situation. Just come back to me. But he responded readily. He says, my heart heard you say, come and talk with me. And I said, I'm coming. I'm there. Isn't that an amazing thing about David and an amazing thing about God? Even in the middle of all of his craziness, in the middle of all of his giants, he heard God calling. God didn't stop calling to David's heart just because David messed up. He didn't throw him away and say, forget it. You don't really want me. He knew David's heart and he knows your heart. And he's still calling you, come. And I hope the response is, I'm right there, God. I'm right there. I want to talk to you today, God. I want to know that sanctuary. I want to know that holy place. I want to know your heart. I want to know that rock, my salvation, my light, right? Wow, that's awesome. I'm totally excited now. And I got to go, right? Peace out, you guys. I hope it said something that made sense or encouraged you a little bit. If you just came in late, go back and watch the very first where I made a couple of announcements. And peace out. And I'll see you bright and early Monday morning.